immediately I had the question of, why is it when we are seeking to go to a place of comfort and peace and joy and solitude and excitement and freedom, we often close our eyes? Like, why do we
Mm,
close our eyes to the things that we see right in front of us in order to transport us? What is it about the closing of the eyes to block off the things that are in our immediate present to take us somewhere away? Maybe that's in the future, maybe that's in the past, maybe that's somewhere, I don't know. But I just did it as we were talking in this conversation. I closed my eyes in the middle of talking, and it took me
yeah.
almost like a lily pad. Like, it took me back to October of having that experience of joy. And
Uh-huh.
then I went from that lily pad and leapfrog back to the childhood, all in
Okay.
the same continuum of
Okay.
feeling. So actually, let me stop there. Let me just, because I know I say it a lot. Um,
Nah, it's nah, I just got more questions that I think just gonna fill in the conversation or whatever. Couple things that maybe we'll come back to, maybe we won't come back to, but
and I
as it relates to a
oh, but before you do
oh, no,
that,
go
I was
ahead.
going to say I do want to hear whether you've had a version of that same type of thing happen
Okay,
that I
okay, yeah, yeah,
described
yeah. All
with the
right.
comfort.
I got one. I got one that happened recently. I think I can tie it in. But I wanted to say I wrote it down. What is it about having to experience, literally experience the old feeling that makes it real right now? So as it relates to talking to the younger selves, I think that can be a challenge for us sometimes because we have no recollection, we have no reference point, no framework for the spaces that our older selves used to inhabit on the regular. So you had to close your eyes, and I think it's something to that as well. But you close your eyes and you go to this old feeling. What is it about having to experience it now in order to make it real? Does that make any sense?
Okay, let me make sure I understand your question. Is your question grounded in a position that says that there's something fleeting about the feeling that we have to find a way to go and reclaim it?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to, because I'm still I'm still working
Yeah.
it out as I ask the question. But yeah, I think I'm getting at the fact that it can be a challenge, as I said, talking to your younger self, because you just don't have a starting point because the feelings are so fleeting and they're so far behind us. We feel so far removed from them that we have to do intentional, like contemplative practices, like closing our eyes and meditating and stuff like that to even get in the space to say, oh yeah, it did feel good when I did this. It did bring me life, bring me joy when I did this, versus being able to kind of go through our memories Rolodex and say, at 12,
Yeah.
at the age of 12, I used to feel like this every day. So how do I get back to that space? Because you hear all the gurus and influencers talk about advice to your younger self, but what the hell? How the hell do I even get my younger self to sit down in front of me to have the conversation? A lot of times I don't know where that guy is. I don't even know where he is. Like he's there, don't get me wrong, but I don't know where he is. Or my 12-year-old self versus my 11-year-old self when my grandfather passed, versus my 9-year-old self when he first got sick, versus my 6-year-old self when he beat a heart attack. Like, do you know how much digging I gotta go? You talk about digging through those comic books. You know how many like comic books in my mind I gotta go through to get back to that guy to be able to have much less advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's heavy. That's heavy. And it's and immediately as I was listening to your question, I said to myself, why does Jay have to ask that question?
Mm-hmm.
Why
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
why why are we so far away? Why isn't why aren't those versions of ourselves that you described at those different ages always with us every day?
Yeah.
What
There we
happens in
go.
the world? What happens in the process of
There we go.
that gets us so distant
Mm-hmm.
from that level of freedom and joy and
Mm-hmm.
excitement? And I mean, I could bury myself in that experience for hours. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sitting in the basement, thumbing through the comic books for hours, like,
Yeah.
and not have a desire to be done.
Hmm.
So okay, so and the reason I said it like that is tying this idea of the distance, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, um, and I may make an argument that because somebody or somebody's told us that it's not safe to be close. But we'll come back to that though. So um as there's something about the process of us aging
Mm-hmm.
that it becomes more about completion than being present.
Yeah.
It's that the
That's a big
joy
part
that I
of it.
described in those books was never about finishing the story.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about like comic books and Marvel and DC and all of these characters, these fictional characters, the story actually never ends. There's
Mm.
always another publication that's coming out. Even when the story ends, they just reboot it
Yeah, the characters
and,
show up in a different story.
and they do it again. They've had like 17
Wow.
Batman movies, and it's just the same. It's just it might be an origin story. It might start from
Yeah.
like how he became Batman again,
Yeah.
even though we
Right.
just saw it 5 times already.
Right.
So there's something about being immersed in these sort of this essence of being in our youth that
Mm-hmm.
was always about um, being present in the moment and never about trying to be
That's it.
finished with the moment. But what happens to us as we age, where we
Okay.
get convinced it's about checklists and
Yeah.
completing and goal setting
Yeah.
and New Year's resolutions and
Yeah.
something that we can scratch off and mark off and be done.
I got it.
I don't know what, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. That you asking that question. Okay. So two things. It gave me a concrete example of something that brought me joy that I was really good at growing up and why I quit that shit.